Orioles Hangout Talk, Terry Ford, 1057 The Fan, Tony Penty, OriolesHangout.com. We went through Tony Penty's top 10 prospect list. Now we're going to kind of pick and choose through 11 to 30, talk about a few of these other prospects. Some you might have heard of, some you might not have. Tony, let's look at 11 to 20 real quick.
Sure.
The guy I want to zero in on first is Dylan Tate. Now, Dylan Tate was a top 5 pick by the Texas Rangers, and they liked him so much they couldn't wait to deal him to the Yankees. The Yankees liked him so much because he was a top 5 prospect in some of these prospect lists with the Yankees. Yankees liked him so much they dealt him to the Orioles in the Zach Britton trade. Right. Now he could be
for
a
2 months of Zach Britton.
Exactly. So he could also be a Rule 5 guy if not protected. That's how long he's been around now, if I'm not misunderstood. Yep. So Dylan Tate goes from a top 5 prospect in the Yankee system to a Tony Penty number 17 prospect in the Orioles system. What did Dylan Tate do to you?
Well, he didn't really do anything personally, but at the end of the day so the way I normally do my lists, right, I have to ask myself as we sit down, and again, I talked about Luke Seiler as part of this process. I want to make sure, I know you keep saying Tony Penty's list. Ultimately, I have to make the phone call, but Luke Seiler is a big part of this.
Can we be honest? It's Luke Seiler's list, and Tony Penty's just taking credit for it.
He lives in Virginia, so that gives me the opportunity to come here and do the show here in Baltimore. So, so when I tried to rank them, ultimately, I asked myself, if I could have only this guy or this guy, who would I want in my system? And if I want that guy, he goes higher in the system. And I kind of use a lot of different ways to do that. For me, guys that I think are going to be, set-up relievers, they're going to fall. They're going to fall behind guys I think could be starters, guys I think could be everyday major leaguers. So, and that's kind of what happened with Dylan Tate. Dylan Tate's a guy that they've been trying to pigeonhole into being a starter since he's been drafted. He is basically a 2-pitch guy, a fastball and a slider. The Orioles got him, and he had a nice four-seamer, and he threw a good velocity, right? Everybody liked the velocity. He was getting strikeouts up in the zone. He was doing all kind of things in the Yankee system, having some success this year. But what happened was the Orioles got a hold of him. They said, you know what? We don't think that's going to work. We're going to make you, we're going to have you throw a sinker. So they adjusted him to a sinker, and what you saw was he struggled a little bit with the sinker. Why he really pitched poorly with the Orioles system for the most part, as he was trying to work on the sinker. He got more ground balls, but he also struck out a whole lot less guys.
Right.
So there's some things there, and the question really comes down to it is, this is a kid now that is getting to a point where what is he? All right. If I've seen a good fastball at times, I've seen a good slider at times. There's some chance there's going to be more velocity. Right now he's a guy that can sit, 92 to 94, and that's fine, 92, 95 sometimes. But in short periods of time, is he a 94 to 96 guy? Is he a guy that can show you a better consistent slider because he's only, coming out there and just, hey, you got 1 inning, you got 2 innings, go throw some gas. So is he better off being that guy? And in our estimation, that's kind of what we think he's going to be. We think he's a setup guy. If you look at the ratings we have down there, currently we're calling him a 45. A 45 to us is a setup guy. It's a solid setup guy, and there's nothing wrong if you could be a setup guy in the major leagues. You're going to make millions of dollars. So it's not a bad thing. I just don't believe in him as a starter. There may be people out there that do. No, I'm sure he'd be higher on the list if they believe he's a starter.
Okay, here's my question with the Orioles. Now, you say he comes in. The Yankees did some things with him once he came from Texas. Because the Rangers gave up on him quick. There were some things where he was the coachability stuff in Texas in their system. So they deal him, I think, maybe a year in professional ball, gone to New York.
After being a first-round pick.
A top 5.
Right.
A top 5
So he
pick.
was a high first-round pick to get traded that quick. Somebody doesn't like you.
Yeah, you got fire alarms going off all over the place. So then he goes to the Yankees, and they work some stuff, and it seems like he's number 5 in a deep system. So he comes to the Orioles. Now, help me with this, Tony Penty. You get a guy coming in throwing 97 and doing this and that, and you say, hey, I got a great idea. Why don't we shelve that and have you start throwing a sinker? Help me. Why? I'm sure they're asking the same question.
It's a great question, and it's something I guess I won't be able to answer since I didn't make the changeover. But what I can say is from the Orioles' perspective is, there were times when he came out, he was very inconsistent in his velocity. Sometimes it was off, it was up, it was down. By the way, one thing is that I've heard from multiple people, including people outside the organization who were actually somebody from the Ranger system who actually had a conversation with about him. And he's not a bad kid. This is not a bad, I don't listen to coaching. Maybe it's I'm not able to take coaching and put it into action. All right, so there's a difference. There's a difference between guys that don't want to do it because they don't want to listen, and guys that are incapable of consistently doing what you've been.
So maybe the Rangers were just frustrated.
They could have been frustrated. And I think that's what some of it was. The Yankees kind of adjusted some things. The stuff fell off a little bit with the Yankees. It kind of came back up. What I heard this season, it was starting to go back up a little bit. But I watched a couple of his starts when he was in the Yankee system, and at no point did I watch this guy and go, I was never wowed. There was nothing in there that every once in a while he would flash you a slider, you go, oh, that's a plus slider. But then it's crap slider, bad slider, okay slider, great slider, bad slider. So there's that kind of inconsistency. And that's one of the things I look for from my starters, from guys I think at his age. I start saying, are you consistently able to throw these pitches? Can you repeat those? And that's not what I see. And when I see guys that aren't capable of repeating, you've seen guys who's incapable of keeping being changed because somebody doesn't like something with them. I start saying, you know what? Let's slow all this down. Let's not stop worrying about what you're going to do every 5 days and prepare yourself for starting. Sometimes they have that mentality of stick them out in the bullpen, be ready to go. Okay, you have a fastball and a slider. Use your two bat. Go out and go out and throw it hard. Throw it hard, and obviously you need a command, but that might be who Dylan Tate ends up being, and if he is, I think that's going to be a guy that's going to be out in a bullpen doing that.
So basically, don't think, just throw meat. Is that kind of where we're at with Dylan Tate?
A little bit.
All right, is there anybody from 11 to 20 that's a fast riser on your list here that you say, hey, keep an eye out for him, he could be in our top 10, and you might see him in the majors one day?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Adam Hall at 19 is the guy right now that I personally really like. Adam Hall. He really came on, his second round pick, and he was a guy when he showed up, Canadian kid who came in, and he wasn't very strong. He was young. There was not a lot of strength to him. Some of the things I heard from the folks in the system was, I'm not sure about the tools. Are there a lot of tools there? Is it, should he have been a second round pick? Is this kind of a utility guy? But this season he came back and there was more just kind of fast twitch a little bit more in the body. He's a very, very good base stealer, and that's the thing. Very good instincts on the bases. He gets the most out of his speed, so he's the kind of guy I think is going to steal bases as he moves up. Defensively, he plays shortstop. I think he can stay at shortstop, but I think he's going to be more in that Mike Bordick type role. He's not going to be that flashy shortstop that blows you away with a fantastic arm. He's going to be that guy, maybe almost like J.J. Hardy, that's going to kind of understand the timing more than having extreme tools out there. But the question here is he did a great job this year with the bat. The plate discipline was really, really good. It really got much better as the season went on. And remember, he was 19 years old playing in the New York Penn League, which is a college league. Right. So he was playing a young player and played very well there. Now the question is upside, and the upside here is he an everyday shortstop? Is he an everyday second baseman if he moves to second base? Or is he a guy that's probably end up being a utility guy? Is he a tweener guy? So for us, we weren't real comfortable putting him up higher because we weren't sure whether he's a tweener, a utility guy, or whether he can be an everyday guy. And I think next season, I think you're looking at a guy that's going to be in Delmarva. He gets a full season there, and he puts up some numbers next year in Delmarva. You can maybe start looking and see some things he's doing. If I suddenly think this is an everyday shortstop or an everyday second baseman who's going to steal a bunch of bases, be a high on base percentage guy, you're going to see him fly up the list.
Okay, now we move to 21 to 30, and you bring up D.L. Hall, or you bring up Adam Hall, and we bring up D.L. Hall.
Sure.
We bring up everybody.
We brought
named
all the
Hall.
Halls.
All the Halls.
All the Halls.
Hall Mentholyptus.
They're
We've got all
everywhere.
sorts of Halls. So we look at 21 to 30. Orioles have, this is a very interesting list here. You've got another shortstop the Orioles just took in the draft, a college shortstop. You got a former first-round pick in this list, and you've got a couple of these, and the Orioles need more of these, toolsy type of high-ceiling, raw, talented infielder types. Right. So have at it 21 to 30.
Yeah, so we can kind of whip through some of these guys. Alex Wells is a guy that we really loved. We loved him. He's an Australian. He's a lot like Lowther, very similar type pitcher. The difference between Lowther and Wells, though, is that Wells' fastball is a little straighter. There's not a lot of hype in there. The concern is he's an 89 to 90 guy. Can he maintain that as he goes up? And will he keep getting the strikeouts? And we saw when he went to Frederick, they started not teeing him up, they started barreling him up a little bit harder. The changeup needs to come around. Everybody keeps talking about how great that changeup is. Every time I watch him, changeup is not good for me. So the curveball rolls too often. So again, I like things about Alex Wells, but he's a guy that I think has to take a next step next year. He's going to get the opportunity of Dewey. And if he puts some big numbers up and some things tighten up for him, he could be also a guy that could move back up because we had him up much higher. And Encarnacion's the guy that came over in an Atlanta trade along with Cumberland as well. And Encarnacion is everything you look for when you're a scout, when you're looking just tools-wise, right? I'm looking for the bat speed. I'm looking for the arm strength. I'm looking for that body that we can build upon. A guy with good speed, you know. You're just like check, check, check. He has it all. The only thing that the big problem here is plate discipline, the ability to pick up he reminds me a lot of what is it? Who's the guy from Major League?
Kevin Costner.
No, the guy you throw a curveball.
Luke Lelouch.
No, don't you watch that movie?
Never heard of it. Oh, Major League. You're talking about Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, but who's the batter? Who was the batter?
Oh,
Jobo.
He burned the thing in his locker.
Yeah.
He would do the.
Everybody out there is saying it right now.
I know, we're dopes. We get it, we're dopes. We've totally lost it. I'm going to Google it real quick on your computer.
And similar to that, as soon as you throw him a curveball, he swings 3 times over it. But if he can ever start to pick up spin, this guy, I was told, hit a home run that was so far, I think it's still actually going in Delmarva. That's how far this guy, when he hits the ball, it's that sound again we talked about. So there are tools here. And he's a decent third baseman. It's not a guy you go, he can't stay there. He's got plenty of arm strength. He's pretty athletic. And I told when he's not a base stealer, but when he moves and he runs, he's a very solid above average runner. So this isn't a guy, he's got that one glaring red flag is he's going to have to be able to pick up spin. If you looked at last season, he had something like a 13 walks to 120 strikeouts, okay, in a low minor leagues, which is awful, okay?
Yeah.
And it's a red flag for me because it's very hard to be able to adjust off that. So yes, I said all those glorious things about all these great things about tools, but if you can't hit a curveball, or if you can't not chase pitches all over the place when you're in low A ball, when you get to double A, you get to triple A, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So that's one of the problems there. But, all the guys that we talked about, just again, you talked about Caden Grenier and DJ Stewart, they're first and second round picks. You would think they'd be higher. Again, it's upside here. And now I'm going to say about Grenier is that we only got a real short look at him. He was much better in college. There was some question about the bat. I think he got drafted, probably overdrafted a little bit. The question is he a utility guy?
Right.
And that's where, so to me, that's why he's low on this list. To me right now, you kind of have to give him it. If he comes back, he was very tired. He had a long season last season. But there's some questions about bat speed there too. There are some questions about upper level velocity, gave him some problems, and I have concerns over hitters that have velocity problems in the low A ball. So those are guys that I think that are interesting. DJ Stewart hit really well in Baltimore. I was really surprised at the awful year he had in Norfolk.
Yeah.
He really got up to Baltimore and something clicked. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
He looked like he had and he's always had a really good plan at the plate. The problem with DJ Stewart is he has a one plane swing. He has the same swing on every swing. There's no adjustments to his swing. Now he might adjust a little bit of the length from trying to hit a home run to just trying to make some contact, but there's not a lot of difference adjustments in there. And there's scouts that believe as pitchers, they pick up on this and scouting starts to hit him a little bit more, they're going to find the holes in the swing and there's going to be concern on what his upside is. So again, we have him as a platoon guy, which is a 45, but he's not necessarily a platoon guy as he can't hit lefties. He actually hits lefties pretty well, but he's probably maybe a fourth outfielder kind of guy.
Right.
But there's some interest there.
All right, so out of 21 to 30, if I just said pick me the one guy that you could see run up the charts before it's all said and done, just one, which one of these would it be?
The one guy that I could see next year being a guy that could be a real mover would be probably Caden Grenier. Just because we didn't see him well, we think he was tired, but if he's a guy that kind of clicks, he has a really good plan at the plate, good walk to strikeout ratio, really kind of knows what he's doing, and was a much better hitter in college than he showed in the pros, which, yes, I understand there's a difference in talent there as well, but just his setup was a lot different. And it may have been just some of these guys get drafted, they come into the minor leagues, and just the whole travel and every day, and it's a whole other lifestyle. So it's really hard to judge. And remember, he should have been playing in Aberdeen. He didn't play at Aberdeen because Adam Hall was at Aberdeen playing shortstop every day, and they wanted him to play there every day. So they pushed him directly from college into low A ball, okay, which is something very rare that the Orioles do. Other people do that, but other systems do that. So again, he's a guy I'm going to be very interested to see when Elias comes in. Is this a guy, do they push him all the way up to Frederick because Hall needs to be at Delmarva? Do they share? How is this going to work? So there's a lot of interesting things going on with him. I think he's a guy, though, that next season he could be right back in here in my utility area, or he could be a guy that could be up there, if we start thinking he's an everyday shortstop. If he starts showing a little bit more pop, then he could be a guy that could be definitely higher on our list.
I don't know anything you just said because I'm trying to remember the name of the guy from Major League.
Serrano.
That's it, Serrano. Wasn't he the guy that played the president in 24?
He was.
Look at that. I know that. I can't think of it. I can't think of the name
and
of the
character.
character.
He's the All-State guy.
He's
You're
the
in good
All-State
hands.
guy. Yes, he is. All right. Last guy I want to ask you about before we finish up with this episode is Carmona at number 25. Some people thought when the Scope trade was made with the Brewers at Carmona, because he's, 12 years old,
He's
whatever
18,
he is.
yeah.
He's a youngin'.
Young.
And again, another toolsy upside type of player, very raw. What did you see with Carmona?
Yeah, Carmona was a guy that when I read a lot of the scouting reports and stuff, that's exactly what I thought we were going to see. Toolsy guy, young, just real raw. And then he showed up, and I think there was some disappointment on the tools. I think there are tools there. There's some solid average tools, but there was not a lot of quick twitch in the body. There was not a lot of there's no strength. Now, granted, he's 18, and we talked about a little bit already with Hall and not having a lot of strength and making a jump when he turned 19. There's some thought here that maybe that will happen. That's why we have an upside of a 50 with him, with 50 being an everyday major leaguer. So there is upside here. I just think there's a little bit of disappointment. There wasn't more pizzazz with him when he showed up. I think another thing that doesn't help him is. You get these guys that come over, and you get the guys that, man, they're everywhere. They're baseball rats. They're doing everything they can. Then you get the guys that think they're too cool for the room. And I think there's a little bit of that goes on with this kid. I think there's some maturity level needs to go with him. I don't think he showed well in the organization when he showed up. He was absolutely awful on the field.
Right.
But I think even in instructs, even in other things, I didn't get a lot of positive reports that came out of, and I'm talking from guys that I have a whole lot of respect for who tell me the real deal. These are guys who have told me first and second round picks the first time they saw them, they didn't understand, and they get flaming out. So these are guys that they're usually really good about seeing these guys and kind of going, all right, and they're willing to say when guys change, like they did with Adam Hall. Like I said, first reports I got from Adam Hall, not as bad as Carmona, but there was some disappointment for a second-round pick, because you kind of expect, what's that carrying tool? What's that one thing that you're going to say, this is what makes him an everyday major leaguer? Because in the second round, you should be trying to draft for everyday major leaguers, not utility guys.
Okay, here's the question last one about Carmona. Because, Greg Spielberg is starting to, he's yawning, he's getting sleepy, our director. All right, Carmona, you say second-round pick. You say you hear about Toolsy, he's 18. Is it the lack of amount of scouts looking at players and getting eyeballs on players? How much does that affect when, for an example, like you and I can go read a scouting capsule, because that's what I did with Carmona, and I see Toolsy, 18, high ceiling, but then like when you saw him, and when you get the eyeballs on him, you go, okay, where's the Toolsy part of Toolsy? Is this because you were scouting, your number of scouts isn't that big to where you don't have enough eyeballs to be able to see some of these things? Did this hurt in an instance like Carmona with the Orioles in the past regime?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I talk with a lot of scouts, and almost every one of them, when I ask, like, hey, where do you, what teams do you look at? And almost all of them are like, from low A up. Almost nobody looks at rookie ball. Because first off, most people in rookie ball have just been drafted. They've been drafted a year or two out. They have scouting reports that came from their amateur scouts. Okay, so they had the initial, and they kind of look at those first couple years as, all right, that's their get their feet under them years, right? I don't want to go scout this guy. So it's very rare to see a guy get traded when he's 18 years old because other teams don't have a lot of reports on him if they're not in your own system. So it's really interesting that I'm not sure what the background on how Carmona got put on this trade. It's really interesting that someone liked him. You read reports, like you say, you read these capsules. I read so many of these capsules when the guys we got into trades, and I thought, holy moly, the Orioles just stole people left and right. You know, Cody Carroll. This guy throws 98 miles an hour.
Oh, I was seeing 98 tips 100.
Right. I'm like,
he killed a man in double A with a pitch. I mean, it was just crazy.
You were supposed. I was expecting this amazing, these amazing guys. This guy, future closer, and
Zach
then
Pop, another one.
Well, Zach Pop. Yeah, I did have him on the
You
other
have him on
list.
the list. He's on the list with Carroll.
He's up there. He's up there.
He's in 11 to 20 at least, Zach
Yeah,
Pop.
and Pop I think is a little better.
But you're right. Carroll's sitting here at 26, and he came to the majors and got torched.
He was awful, and he looked like the one thing I really didn't like, and nothing against the young man, but the first time he went out there, he looked like he was scared out of his mind. And I'm okay. It's your first major league game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with you looking like, oh my God, I've heard the players not be able to feel their legs, just
Right.
like we can't feel our
was
feet
just
right now. We've been standing here a long time.
Right.
So
You
know,
could right now take a drill to my foot, and I wouldn't even know it.
yeah, we're all blaming that on Greg. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah,
That's
Greg.
our
Good
that's our-
idea
that's
with
our-
the stand-up, Greg.
Yeah,
Anyway,
great.
go ahead.
Don't worry about that. This looks super. So either way, you hear about those kind of things going on, and you made me now lose my train of thought.
Oh, you're talking about he was scared to death.
He was
on
scared
the
to
mound,
death.
and that was okay for your first time because you lose feeling in your legs.
Right, and that's how we got to our feet. So,
Pedro Serrano.
Right.
Go ahead, keep going.
so the second time, the problem is the second time it looked like that. The third time it looked like that, and then he got in there, and the game wasn't even on the line, and he looked like that.
He looked like that in the
And
dugout.
He's
He looked
pulling
like
he's pulling the, and he had not just no control, but no command, no control. He was pulling sliders 3-4 feet like he was gripping it so hard, like the nervousness in there. And I didn't see a lot of movement to the fastball. The slider was very inconsistent, even when he did throw a couple of good ones. And I don't care. You can throw 98 miles an hour in this league, and you're going to get hit if you can't throw it and command it, or you don't have good movement.
Right.
You throw it hard, and I didn't see a lot of movement to it, and I didn't see consistent sliders, and I saw a guy who looked like he was scared. Those aren't three good things to mix together. However, I will give him a pass, and his first time in the major leagues, maybe he has a chance to go back, regroup a little bit. He doesn't have that pressure maybe on him now because he's thinking, I'm from the New York trade, and I got to make this great first impression. Maybe he gets some self-control a little bit more, comes back next season, maybe commands a little better. So I think he could possibly be a middle reliever, a guy you could put out there, not a guy I want in the 8th inning, then maybe a guy in the 6th inning, a Yacobanis kind of guy who actually did pretty well this season when he came up. Guy actually went above what I thought he was going to do. So, I could see him being a similar guy like that maybe one day, although I tell you right now, I like Yacobanis' stuff better than I like Carroll.
Okay, Tony Penty, OriolesHangout.com. The final question. Do you like your top 30 list this year more than past years? Do you feel like this system is getting better, more depth of prospects, maybe even some prospects that could possibly be really good major leaguers? I mean, we've had this conversation. The biggest issue with you has always been not just depth, but I'm not seeing guys who are going to major league
Who's
level
the
be
impact
difference
guys?
makers.
Right.
Yeah, the impact guys.
Right.
Tell me about this 30 in depth and impact.
So I think without a doubt the trades were a huge part of the system. The guys we brought in, you're talking about Kramer, you're talking about Diaz. Right off the bat, you have those guys in your top 5. Those are good guys that point in your system. So right there, the depth obviously is helping. You're seeing much more depth. I mean, we're getting into 21 to 30, and I still got guys with my most likely being 45s, which are middle relievers, utility guys, and platoon guys. That's okay. When you're at this level, those are guys that I can look at every one of these guys on the list and say, I can see this guy as a major leaguer. Are these impact guys? Probably not. But when we get to that top part of those top 5, from Diaz on up, I mean, you're looking at 5 guys. All 5 of those guys could be impact guys at the major league level. I'm not sure we had that in the past. So I do think that overall, you're seeing a little bit more of those. Is there Manny Machado sitting in here? No. I don't see a Manny Machado in there. But I'll tell you now, we talked about this. I didn't see a DL Hall in here before as well, and we have a DL Hall sitting in there now. So I think the system is improving. I think they've been doing a pretty good job of that. I'm very excited about what Mike Elias is going to do, but talking about bringing in this new talent, elite talent pipeline he talked about doing, all the new international scouting, because look at this list. Other than the guys they traded for, find me one guy that was on there that's from the Dominican that we signed. There's not anybody in there.
Right.
They're all the guys. These are all the guys. So that's the extra pipeline that needs to occur in this thing. I think the Orioles have done a pretty good job overall with the amateur draft, but I'm really excited to see what Elias is going to do in that. Because, like you said, you pointed out that his successes they've already had. He's done it with the Cardinals. He's done it with the Astros, and now hopefully he's going to do it here in Baltimore.
And let's face it, the international pipeline for the Orioles, it wasn't rusty, it wasn't built. There was no pipeline. There was a cave with no hole and no pipeline. So that has got to get bigger and better, because let's look at it. All the successful organizations in minor league systems, they mine the international market huge. It's just, you have to do it today.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you looked at like these national sites that do all the teams, they do the top 100 lists. They're just almost 40 to 50% of these guys now are international prospects. You just can't ignore that, and that's what makes it so exciting now with Mike Elias coming in here, because yes. We heard once Dan Duquette came out this summer and said, "Oh, we're going to start doing this." It's a difference between we're going to start doing this and I've done it. I have the people already in place. I already know these people. I know the agents. I know how to get these people.
I can make phone calls.
I can pick the phone up.
I have a black book.
This.
Right.
So it's a huge difference, and it's going to be a huge difference, I think, in this organization, the talent that's coming in the system. I see the Orioles system just basically, hopefully, going from, I've seen everywhere from being a mid-range system to a back-end system. I don't follow other systems. That's why I don't like to say. I've had people ask me before, where do they rank? I don't know. Okay, because I only follow the Orioles system really good. I know my buddy Luke Seiler, he looks at more things outside
The guy
of that.
you steal everything from?
Yeah, that
exactly.
Guy. But the end of the day is what I see is the system improving. I'm excited about what Elias and his guys are going to do with bringing more talent in here. So next year when we're doing this, we're talking about more impact guys, new guys that came in that we're excited about, and then maybe our 21 to 30, aren't utility guys and relievers. Maybe we're talking about potential starters still.
Absolutely. Tony Penty, OriolesHangout.com, Terry Ford, 105.7 The Fan. That was episode 3, talking about the prospects from 11 to 30 and just some other thoughts about the Orioles system moving forward in 2019. Hope you enjoyed it. We have no feeling in our feet or hands. We're going to go now. Thanks a lot, Greg. Great work. Greg Spielberg doing a fine job putting this together. We'll talk to you soon. Orioles Hangout Talk.